Hello everyone, good morning and welcome to today's lecture. So today what we are going to do is we are going to continue chapter 3, that is audit planning, strategy and execution. Okay. Remember in the last lecture we discussed in detail about our audit planning, overall audit strategy. Then we discussed about documenting the audit plan and audit strategy. Then we went to discuss about audit program, wherein we understood why it is necessary to have a detailed audit program and what is how the audit program is different from our audit overall audit strategy and audit plan. So today we will be continuing the topic uh, by focusing on the strategy and the execution part. So as I said, audit planning and strategy we already did. Now the third part is the execution part. Okay. So we will understand how and what is the responsibility of the auditor when it comes to the execution of the audit. Okay. Now let's say for example, I'll discuss one example and then we move forward by taking that example further. Let's say you have been appointed auditor for a particular company. Okay, let's say you've been appointed auditor for XYZ Limited. For XYZ Limited. Okay. Now, XYZ Limited has subsidiaries, has few subsidiaries. That is, let's say A Limited, B Limited, CINC. Okay. I'll assume like three subsidiaries are there as of now. One in India, another you can say in kind of Malaysia or Singapore, or you can say third one is in US. Okay. XYZ Limited has three subsidiaries. Now, you have been appointed as an auditor of XYZ Limited. Means you are required to issue opinion on the standalone plus consolidated financial statement. Okay, standalone and consolidated financial statement. Now, in this current scenario, how will you issue opinion on consol FS? That is, when I say consol FS, means that from where you will take the numbers of subsidiaries. Okay. My first question is from where you will take the numbers of subsidiaries, financial numbers of the subsidiaries for the consol FS. Come on, guys. So from where you will take the numbers of the subsidiaries for the consolidation purpose. Come on, guys. So now you have been appointed auditor of XYZ Limited. You are required to do, consolidation. You are required to issue opinion on the consolidated FS. So from where you will verify the numbers of the subsidiaries. Come on, guys. MOA, Salish, can you explain how MOA? So I am saying numbers of subsidiaries means financial numbers or the numbers for the financial statement or amounts. So don't get confused. So amount for amount for FS, amount for financial statement of subsidiaries, from where you will take these numbers or amounts. Come on, guys. Important question, where you will, from where you will take. See, this is something we need to understand, when we will be discussing, like, the topic, we are discussing the execution part. That, okay, now you want to audit the consolidation FS. So, from where we will take the numbers, from where we will, verify the numbers. Those are the things in real life also we need to, understand at the time of the execution. Come on, guys. Very good, Charu. Very good. If there is any another auditor appointed for subsidiary, then the separate FS prepared by another auditor. So I may go to the another auditor of these subsidiaries. So I will refer another auditor's audit report. Okay. I will refer to another auditor's audit report here. Now, I got the answer for this one. Another auditor's audit report. Fine. The next question I want to ask is, can I rely on another auditor's audit report directly? Can I rely upon the another auditor's audit report directly? Let's say at a one point in time I was saying Malaysia. Let's say let's remove this one Malaysia from here. I say this is not Malaysia, this is Afghanistan. Now tell me, can I rely on the another auditor's report directly? Like, okay, he gave me the report, I took the report and I relied it. Matter over. Is it so? Yes, no. Come on, guys. Yes, no. What? Can I rely? Okay, so the auditor in the Afghanistan gave me the report. Can I rely it on directly on the reports? Good, Salish. There could be two answers for this question. Either I can say yes, either I can say no. There could not be a third answer. If yes, then why? If no, then why? See, the more you will try to answer, the more you will think about the process, okay, about the auditing, execution, and everything, and the more clarity you will get. So it's not like that, don't worry about the wrong answer. Just, try to answer whatever your thought process is giving you. And on the basis of that, okay, let's see whether it's correct or not, but at least try. Good, Geeta, very good. So I have two, Salesh and Geeta, they are in favor of no. Okay. So I have two for no and none for yes as of now. Okay. So if you are saying no, then what is the reason? Why can't I directly rely upon the audit report submitted by the another auditor? Good, very good, Geeta. But before that, I may raise a question on the auditor itself. Let's say I also say no. And why no? The reason because is yes will not be there. No, because I need to see competency of that auditor, professional competency, if he is not a ICA or a member of institute. So competency, independence, and ethical requirements. When he is not a member of institute. So he, I need to see how he's satisfying the independence and ethical requirement, whether and the professional competency when he's not a member of ICAI. I cannot directly rely upon the audit report which is submitted by any of the auditor. Okay, good, Charu, very good. Could be because now the next question is uh next answer to this is could be because of materiality, risk assessment, could be because of okay uh procedures he has performed are not sufficient for me. Correct. Now, if these are the scenarios, if these are the scenarios like competency issue, materiality issue, procedural issue, okay, then I need to make sure that these are performed and then only I can rely upon the work that is being performed by another auditor. So here we are nothing but we are going to understand in the same line that okay, what are the things that we need to see when we are relying or we are using the work of another auditor. So as I said, SA 600 guides us when we are using the work that is performed by another auditor. Now the question comes is who all are part of another auditor. So if I say, okay, work performed by another auditor, then who all are part of another auditor? I'll give you some option. You say yes or no, whether that is included in not. Auditor of subsidiary, branch auditor, joint auditor, internal auditor, another signing partner of same engagement firm or audit firm. I'll say audit. So you have these options. Okay. First one, second one, third one, fourth, and fifth. So you tell me which will be covered in the definition of another auditor as per your understanding, or you can guess also, and what is not covered under the definition of another auditor. Come on, guys. What is covered and what is not covered under the definition of another auditor? This will help us in understanding the scope. Come on, guys. Okay, except joint auditor, all are another auditor. Okay, covered. BR auditor and internal auditor. Okay, come on, guys, quickly. What do you think? Which all are covered over here? Another signing partner. Okay. So some are saying joint auditor is not covered. Except joint auditor, all other auditors are covered. Uh, Another signing partner of firm and joint auditor not covered. Okay, except joint auditor, all are covered. So majorly, you guys are saying that joint auditor is not covered. That is correct because that is covered by SA 299. And some of you are saying that you okay, another signing partner is not covered. Absolutely correct. This is also not covered because this is part of same engagement team audit firm. So it will also be not covered. Now, question comes with whether internal auditor is covered or not. So generally, when I say another auditor, internal auditor is also not covered because there is separate essay that we see upon when we are talking about work to be, work of internal auditor. If you want to rely upon the work of internal auditor, there is a separate essay to guide us on this. 6110. Okay. So as of now, only two are covered. That is the auditor of subsidiary and branch audit. So understand what isn't another auditor in the current scenario. Or we will be using the term other auditor. Instead of another auditor, we will be using the term other auditor as a definition. Okay. So when I say other auditor, another auditor, it includes other than principal auditor with responsibility for reporting, okay, on the financial statement of component, which is, this is very important, which is included in the financial statement audited by the principal auditor. Now, there are few things that we need to understand in this definition. Okay. Number one, what is the component? Number two, who is the principal auditor? Okay. So these are the two things first we need to understand. When I say component, the definition of component goes like component means a division, branch, subsidiary, joint venture, associated enterprise, or other entity whose financial information again whose financial information, okay, is included in the financial information audited by principal auditor. Okay. So whenever a division's branch of subsidiaries, joint venture, or other associates entities, financial information is included in some other entity's financial information which is being audited by principal auditor. In that case, this particular essay, and that particular entity will be covered into the component part. In case of joint venture, when I talk about A limited or B limited, the financial information that is FI of A Limited is included in financial information of XYZ Limited, which is being audited by you, that is a principal auditor. Again, when a financial information of a branch subsidiary is included in the financial information of another entity which is audited by a principal auditor, that branch and subsidiary will be known as a component. So this will be your component based on the definition. It could be branch, division, subsidiary, joint venture, associated enterprise, all those things. So we are talking about financial information included in the financial information which is audited by the principal auditor. Now, the question comes is, who is the principal auditor? What I meant by a principal auditor. Principal auditor is nothing but the auditor with the responsibility. So if I tell you the definition, principal auditor means the auditor with responsibility okay for reporting on the financial information of an entity when that in financial information when that financial information includes financial information of one or more component audited by another auditor. Okay. So that is a principal auditor. Means if he is auditing the financial information in which other financial informations are there, then he is the principal auditor. Okay. Now these are the key terms that are required to be understood before we proceed further, because we need to understand what is the component, what is other auditor, and who is the principal auditor. Now, there are lot many things which are, required to be seen before just relying upon the work performed by another auditor. So, for example, let's say I was talking about three entities: A Limited, B Limited, and C Limited. Let's say XYZ Limited's standalone turnover. Standalone turnover is rupees 1000 CR. Standalone turnover of XYZ Limited is 1000 CR. The standalone turnover of ABC Limited is, let's say, uh, rupees 200 CR. B Limited's standalone turnover is rupees 25 lakhs, and C Limited's standalone turnover is, let's say, 40 CR. Okay. Again, now the standalone turnover we are talking about of all the four entities. Now, the materiality for the XYZ Limited at the standalone level was, a 5% or 10% of revenue or profits. Okay. So as you know, the benchmark was selected. Let's say I'll take, even 1% of the revenue. So let's say 1% of revenue was benchmark materiality. So 1% of this particular 1,000 CR will come to 10 CR. That was my overall materiality. Now you tell me, based on this overall materiality, do you still think that I need to, have the audit report of all the three entities? Based on this overall materiality and the turnovers, do you think that I need to still go and see the audit reports of A Limited, B Limited, and C Limited? What do you think? From the materiality point of view, what do you think? Come on, guys. What do you think? Good, Shailesh. Very good. So, do I need to consider all, or I can exclude some? Do I need to consider A, B, and C, all three, or I can exclude some? Come on, guys. Obviously, good Charu, good Geeta, good Shailesh. And in this, on same line, I want to show you something. How many of you read the annual report? If no, then you should start reading. Start referring to this particular document. It's very important to understand how things work actually. Okay. Now, see this thing. This is Independence Auditor Report on Consolidated Financial Statement. Okay. And I'll tell you something over here. One interesting paragraph that we are going to learn now. See over here. We did not audit the, just a minute. Okay. No issue. So we did not audit the financial statement and other financial information in respect of 12 subsidiaries whose financial statement include total asset of this much crores and total revenues of this much amount, net cash flow this much crores for the year ended. These financial statement and other financial information have been audited by other auditors. Which financial statement, uh, other financial information and audit report have been furnished to us by the management. So this, they have some, subsidiaries or 12 subsidiaries basically. If I say 12 subsidiaries whose financial information were not audited by them, it was audited by some other auditor. That is there. But there are certain other subsidiaries also. The accompanying consolidated financial statement include unaudited financial statement and other unaudited financial information in respect of one subsidiary, which was acquired and disposed of during the year. Okay, so there was one subsidiary which is unaudited. Now, how I decide whether this is unaudited, audited, or like what focus I pay on to this. So if I have to pay focus, so if you see this one line, that whose financial statement and other financial information reflect total asset nil crores and 31 March and total revenue of nil and net cash flow of 0.03. This, this, this shows that materiality. Okay, materiality means what we do is, if that is not material, I may not consider or I may not require audited financial statement or audit report of another auditor, to include the financial information in my number. So your first exception for this particular standard, okay, when I can skip, applying this standard, when I can skip is when several components, okay, are immaterial in themselves, okay, or in together, or are together immaterial in relation to financial statement of the entity as whole. Okay, so when the several components are immaterial in themselves or are together immaterial in relation to the FS of the entity as a whole, I can apply exception and I will not follow the standard. Now, let's say, for example, when I'm talking about immaterial themselves or together immaterial. Now, in the below example, I was talking about B Limited. Okay, B Limited is immaterial in itself. What if I present you another example, okay, on the similar lines, but this time more subsidiaries. Let's say, for example, XYZ Limited has subsidiaries A Limited, B Limited, C Limited, D Limited, E, and F. Now I say the turnover of this is 200 CR, 25 CR, 25 lakhs, 10 CR, 8 CR, then 35 lakhs, then let's say 1.4 CR. Okay. So this is how the turnovers are of the companies. Entity turnover. Now my overall materiality, let's say, is 2 CR of the company. Overall materiality of the company is 2 CR. Now which all entities I will exclude from here? You tell me which all entities I will exclude from here. Out of A, B, C, D, E, F, which all entities I will exclude? Or I can exclude based on materiality. Come on, guys. Come on, guys. Speak. Okay. Good, Mohammed. Good, Salish. Good, Geeta. Very good. Good, Mufida. Which all I can exclude. My overall materiality is 2 CR. My overall materiality is 2 CR. Good, Pradeep. So, as most of you answered, I can exclude D, E, and F because they are below materiality. Okay. But there is one small problem here. If I exclude B, E, and F, the problem is if I exclude B, E, and F, okay, if I exclude B, E, and F, the problem will be that total of these three will become to 25, 35. That is something 60, 1.4 becomes to 2 CR. Again, which becomes material for me. Okay. Which becomes material for me. 25, 35, 1.4. Now it's 2 CR, which is material. So, what I wrote over here is when several components are immaterial in themselves or are together immaterial in relation to FS of the entity as a whole, then I can apply this exception. I will not, include those particular entities. But if several components, if several components immaterial in themselves are together material, immaterial in themselves, but together are material in relation to that the same thing in relation to the financial information, to the financial information of the entity as a whole, the procedures in SS 600 will be applicable. Means SS 600 in that case will be applicable. So I'm talking about they are immaterial in themselves, but they are together material. Exception is immaterial in themselves plus together also immaterial. Understand the difference between both. If together they are material, I need to consider the requirement of this essay. Clear? Any doubt till now? Any doubt? Okay. If no doubts, let's proceed further. Now we are talking about, the scope basically. This is nothing but we are discussing about the scope of the your standard when it will be applicable. We are discussing just the now comes once we are clear with the scope, what scope it is. We come with now we need to understand the requirement. Okay, we need to understand with respect to the requirement. So now when I was talking about in this particular example, XYZ Limited. Okay. When I'm talking about this particular example, let's say the auditor are uh, M, N, O, P, Q, R. These are the persons who are auditor. And for XYZ Limited, it is Mr. T. Okay. So Mr. M, N, O, P, Q, R are the auditors. And for XYZ Limited, it's a T. Okay. Now I'll change some numbers. So the turnover of XYZ Limited is, let's say, rupees 200 CR. D Limited turnover is rupees 300 CR. Now this is a scenario. Your XYZ Limited parent company has a 200 crore CR turnover. A Limited has a 200 crore CR. B 25, C 10, D 300, E 35 lakhs, and F 1.4 CR. Now, as per the definition, what we understood is that the principal auditor is means the auditor with responsibility for reporting on the financial information of an entity when the financial information includes financial information of one or more component. We understood, okay, fine, that's a principal auditor where the financial information is included of one or more components. Okay, that will be the principal auditor. Now, do you think that the auditor, before considering as a principal auditor, okay, before he himself consider as a principal auditor, what things are necessary that principal auditor needs to understand over here? For example, when I say XYZ Limited, Mr. D is auditing 200 CR, but Mr. P is auditing 300 CR turnover. Can I say P Limited will be principal auditor, not D, because P is auditing more? What do you think? Do you think Mr. D can be called as a principal auditor when he is auditing only 200 CR, but P is auditing 300 CR? Come on, guys. What do you think? What principal auditor needs to consider here? Like, can Mr. P tomorrow say that, okay, I am auditing D Limited, I am auditing 300 CR, now I am principal auditor, you are not the principal auditor? So, all you guys are saying D, okay, D is the principal auditor because he's auditing the holding company. Okay, I'll change this example. I'll change this example and I'll say instead of 200 CR, the turnover was only 2 CR. As of now, we'll ignore the materiality. Okay, the turnover of XYZ Limited is 2 CR, and here A Limited turnover is 20 CR. Now tell me, do you still think D is a principal auditor? Come on, guys. Do you still think D will be principal auditor? Okay, Salish, good. Okay. Now, keep this example in front of you, okay, in your mind, and let's go to the auditor. We were discussing this paragraph. Okay. Now read this particular line. Our opinion on the consolidated financial statement insofar relates to the amount and disclosure included in respect of these subsidiaries and our report in terms of section 3 of 143 of the Act insofar as it relates to the aforesaid subsidiaries is based on solely on the report of such other auditors. Means here they are saying they are relying upon the report of such other auditors and their opinion is based on the solely on the reports of such auditor. So if this is a scenario that they did not audit the financial statement, okay, and other financial information, and when I go in this case over here, I say that Mr. D will not audit majority of the consolidated amount. So if I console everything, that 20, 25, 10, 300, 35 lakhs, 1.4 and 2 CR, majority he will say, I have not audited, I am solely relying upon the report submitted by Mr. P. Do you still think that will be appropriate? Understand what I'm saying? I am saying if this is the kind of scenario where Mr. D says, okay, I have relied upon, I have not audited majority chunk of the consolidated financial revenue because I have relied upon the work which is performed by Mr. P. Do you think that will be appropriate? Come on, guys. Do you think that will be appropriate? Good, Salish. Very good. Good, Geeta. Okay, Mufita. Very good. So that will not be appropriate because I am saying majority of chunk I have not audited, but I have relied upon someone other's auditor's report. In that case, that is not appropriate. So what should be done? If this is a scenario, what should be done? Should I ask Mr. D to step down? See, now for that purpose itself, there is a requirement in the standard. That is, before accepting as a principal auditor, before acceptance as a principal auditor, okay, the principal auditor needs to look into and needs to consider the following. So the principal auditor should consider whether the auditor's own participation is sufficient to act as a principal auditor. Means if he is only participate in the audit, whether he is still auditing the majority of the portion. So the auditors should consider whether his own participation is sufficient to be able to act as principal auditor. Now, how we will identify whether his own participation is sufficient? Okay, that his own participation is sufficient. How will I come to know that? So I can see certain factors. For this, certain factors can be considered. That is one, materiality of the portion of financial information which principal auditor is auditing. Materiality of the portion of the financial statement or financial information rather, which the principal auditor is auditing. So that is the one thing he can consider to understand whether his own participation is sufficient. Second, principal auditors degree of knowledge regarding the business of component. Okay. Third, risk of material misstatement in financial information. In the financial information of component. Okay. And fourth is the performance of additional procedures. Performance of additional procedures uh, which are prescribed in this essay, okay, regarding component audited by other auditor, regarding component audited by other auditor, resulting in significant participation. Means that other procedures that principal auditors needs to perform to make sure that his participation is significant in such audit. Okay. So performance of additional procedures. Okay. On account of or by other auditor, resulting that the principal auditor's participation becomes significant. Now we will understand which are these other procedures or additional procedures. Okay. But all these are the factors that are required to be considered in order to identify whether the participation of principal auditor on his own is sufficient. And the case which we saw was one with respect to materiality of the portion that was, that was audited by the principal auditor. Then the degree of knowledge is there. Then the risk of material misstatement is there, and performance of additional procedure. Based on these, it could be understood whether the participation is sufficient or not. If it is not sufficient, then before accepting as a principal auditor, the principal auditor should think whether he's uh, whether his appointment will be appropriate in this regard or not. Okay. So as I said, additional procedures, the performance of additional procedures is required. Okay. Uh, in this scenario, by the principal auditor in order to have a significant participation in such audit. Okay. So I was talking about additional procedures. Now, what are these procedures that the principal auditor has to perform? That is very important to understand. So, principal auditor's procedure. So, principal auditor may visit a component and examine the books of account. Okay, or other records in order to satisfy himself. Now, where another auditor has been appointed normally, okay, and he's already performing the audit. In that case, principal auditor might not visit, but that totally depends upon the principal auditor and the comfort that he is getting by the work that is being performed by the component auditor. So that's why I wrote the word may visit. Not necessarily he should visit, but he may visit. And that totally depends upon the circumstances that are requiring him to visit to the component. So he may visit. Okay. Then before accepting or any work that is performed by the component auditor, we saw that the principal auditor should consider the competency of other auditor, competency or professional competency of other auditor. Okay, except when the other auditor is member of institute. If he's member of institute, then it is fine. Otherwise, the principal auditor has to look into the competency. We cannot directly accept that we already discussed. Then, after looking into the competency, when the principal auditor is using the work of another auditor, okay, he needs to communicate. Principal auditor needs to communicate to other auditor Number one, the work, okay, the work that is the work of other auditor, that is to be made, that is or that will be used by principal auditor. So if something is being performed by the other auditor, then that work that will be used by the principal auditor. Okay, means okay, you are performing this testing, I will be using this testing. So accordingly, you need to plan and perform this particular test. Areas requiring special consideration. Third, uh, procedures for identification of intercomponent transactions. Procedures for identification of intercomponent transactions. Significant accounting and auditing reporting requirements. Significant accounting and auditing reporting requirements. Now, if you see that, I'll be continuing with the other procedures also. But if you see, if I say the principal auditor has to perform these other procedures, additional procedures in order to, show or demonstrate these significant, uh, in order to show his participation is sufficient. Means he needs to, communicate, he needs to look into all these things. But if I take this example, this one. So here, if Mr. D is, you know, providing information, okay, what you need to test, how you need to test, and the things that are required and important from the principal auditor's point of view with respect to the component auditors. Will it be appropriate? Because see, Mr. P is already testing a majority of the portion. Okay, let's say this is just a holding company. XYZ is only a holding company. So the degree of knowledge of the components business, the risk assessment or the risk of material misstatement in the component, okay, or you can say the additional procedures that are required by Mr. D will be very much high in the current case. How? Let's say, for example, if I say that principal auditor has to guide or provide this information. Okay, what are the significant accounting policies? What are the areas that require special consideration, or how the work of other auditor will be used by principal auditor? In this case, if I talk about special areas, if I talk about accounting policies, if I talk about areas which are having high risk, they will already be covered by Mr. P, because Mr. P is auditing a majority of the check. So in that case, to demonstrate significant participation, Mr. D might do repetition of the work that is already being done by. Are you getting my point? Any doubt till now? Any doubt? And at times, principal auditor is required to test by himself. So he might, ask some other auditor, okay, please provide me the written summary. Okay, completed questionnaire or checklist, or the principal auditor may also wish to visit other auditor, and he may perform some other procedures. So in that case, it is very, very important to understand like it should not be a duplication of the work. Clear? Any doubt, guys? Any doubt? Any doubt? Okay, let us continue. So I was talking about, the areas that the principal auditor needs to communicate. Over and above that, principal auditor, okay, can request, okay, uh, to other auditor for a written summary of the other auditors findings and procedures and findings. Okay, and that can be obtained in the form of a summary. No, in the form of a questionnaire or checklist. The summary can be obtained in the form of questionnaire or checklist. Okay. Now, one important area that I want to discuss is, let's say, for example, I'll take up this example. I'll continue this example. Let me continue this example. Now, let's say assume after auditing all these entities by their respective auditors, let's assume what opinion they issued. So Mr. A issued unmodified opinion, or as of right, I'll write, no issues identified. Same with B, no issues. C identified the issue, or so observations identified, issues identified. Same, P also identified issues. Okay, so what issues identified? Let's say, for example, data's overstated by rupees, let's say 45 lakhs. One. Number two, same way, sales overstated and profit also by rupees, same 45 lakhs. Okay. Delimited identified in observation. Okay. That calculation of warranty estimate is not appropriate. Okay. And the excess warranty booked is rupees, let's say 2 cr. Yeah, 2, no, not 2 cr, it's too high. Let's say 1 cr, hypothetical example. And again, Q had no issues and R also had no issues. Okay. Now, Mr. D, when he will receive this report, or let's say, for example, you are in place of Mr. D, when you will receive these reports, how you will deal with this particular observation? What you will do with this particular observation? So let's say you are Mr. D. Now you have received the reports of M, N, O, P, Q, R auditors. And in that you have two audit reports which one in which there are observations and issues. How you will deal with this? What you will do with these observations? Come on, guys. What you will do with these observations? Come on, guys, quickly. How you will deal with these observations? Okay, communicate to management, discuss with management, and those charges governance. Good. Good, Mufita. Good, Charu. What else? Or is it relevant for you? You are any which ways not relying upon the work. So first of all, will you or consider these observations or not? So let's say, for example, my question is whether you as a principal auditor, you as a principal auditor will consider this observation for your own opinion. So whether you will consider these observations for your own opinion, because in audit report I saw the words mentioned are we did not audit the financial statement and we have relied solely on the reports of such other auditor. So will you consider the opinion, in your opinion, these observations? Come on, guys. Will you consider these observations in your opinion, for your own opinion? Or I will just, okay, they are in the audit report, that's it. I have solely relied upon the audit report. I will not look into the observations. You will discuss with the other auditor, okay? But will you consider these observations in your own opinion also? Come on, guys. Okay, good, Salish. Very good. Okay. Let me show you something more with respect to this. As in another example to you guys. Again, whatsoever I'm using, the audit reports, or the reports which I'm showing to you, it's for the public information, and I'm not promoting kind of any company, so don't go on the name of company. Okay. Over here, this is the independence audit report on consolidated financial statement. Okay. Now see, this is a qualified opinion. Okay, qualified opinion. Now this is audit of Reliance Power Limited. Like, I'm just, not taking the name for the sake of, but this is a holding company. Okay. Now, in the audit of holding company, they have identified an observation. Okay. Uh, Kind of in another company, which is a subsidiary. So there is an observation, or, kind of, in subsidiary, uh, on basis of a qualified opinion. And from there, they have continued this observation here also. Okay. So this was there in this, in individual financial individual audit report also, and that has been same taken here also. If I show you another one, see, TFL includes auditor of, wherein the auditor of this particular company highlighted material uncertainty relating to the going concern. So see the wording, wherein the auditor of this particular company have highlighted the material uncertainty of going concern. Again, the publicly available data, I'm not specifically pointing out any company over here. Just this is for your information purpose. Okay. See, the auditors of certain subsidiaries and associates have highlighted material uncertainty relating to going concern in emphasis of matter paragraph or key audit matters relating to going concern in their respective audit reports. So when certain auditors have already reported this matter, then this company, you know, the principal auditor is also considering that information and reporting in its audit report. Okay, means This is something already being discussed, already being, reported by the other auditors, and same being considered by the principal auditor. So principal auditor is considering, yes. And the same is also being considered for your own opinion, or the principal auditor's opinion. Okay. So the principal auditor has to consider the observations, okay, issued by the other auditors or observations of other auditors. The observations issued by other auditors or component auditors, okay, and shall document in his working paper that how he has dealt with that. And principal auditor is required to document the same. So he needs to not only record, the how he has dealt with, but he needs to record the names of the other auditors, conclusion reached in their individual component, are whether are material or not. So he is principal audit is also required to document the procedures performed by and conclusion reached by the principal auditor. Okay, so a lot of things are required to be documented. And as I say, reporting requirements. So there are two things. Now this is the additional procedure that principal auditor is required to perform. Now I'll come to the last part, that is the reporting for. In reporting, there are two type of things that is required to be done. Number one is when principal auditor is not able to obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. If the principal auditor says that he is not able to obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence, okay, or he is not able to perform, principal auditor is not able to perform the additional procedures, sufficient additional procedures. These procedures that we are talking about, performance of additional procedures. So, not able to perform sufficient additional procedures. Okay. Regarding the financial information of the component audited by other auditor. So, regarding financial information of component. In that case, the principal auditor should express a qualified or disclaimer of opinion. Principal auditor should issue a qualified or disclaimer of opinion. Because he is not able to get the information that he requires, or he is not able to perform the additional procedures. That is the first one. If he is able to get, now this was when he is not able to get, but if he is able to get, or there are certain things that like he is he has performed additional procedures or whatsoever, the other area. Okay. Otherwise, principal auditor has to base his opinion, okay, base his opinion on the reports of other auditors, and he needs to mention that base his opinion on report of other auditor, and the same should be specified in uh, kind of other information paragraph. If you see this one, I'm talking about this other matter paragraph. Other matter paragraph. And for example, I'll attach this one. Okay. So that is required to be done as a part of SA 700, SA 600. Any doubt till now? Any doubt, guys? Any doubts? So very important to understand how we need to use the work of another auditor. So when there is a component auditor, how we can use the work performed by the component auditor over here. What principal auditor does. So here we are discussing the responsibilities of principal auditor. Okay. So we are discussing the essay from the viewpoint of principal auditor. That what principal auditor is required to do. Any doubt, guys? No? If no doubts, then let's take a quick 10-minute break, and after the break, we'll gather back and continue the session. Okay? Let's take a quick 10-minute break. So let's continue the session. Okay. So we were discussing about SA 600 till now, and using the work of another auditor, the responsibility of another auditor that we were discussing. Now we will be discussing about, let's see few examples, few questions on the similar line and see that how we can, basically, uh, you know, ap- adopt this particular thing in a practical scenario. So let's see the practical point of view of this. Okay, just give me a moment to open the practical scenarios. Just a minute. Okay, let's see kind of practical scenario wherein we have multiple questions on it. So first, let's understand the scenario. Super Products Limited, a listed entity, invested 500 CR into 1/4 on 1/4 2022 in Tricycle Technologies Limited and acquired 35% equity through superior voting rights, equity shares, and right to appoint the majority of board of directors, including nominee director. Okay. Under the investment agreement, the Tricycle Technology Limited agreed to pay 30.5 crores every year, plus 65% of the declared dividend each year. So TTL agreed that SPCL would take all the decisions about manufacturing, marketing, selling of new or existing products, either already developed or developed through the patent and technology provided by the SPL. SPL appointed Sudha and Associate as their statutory auditor for financial year 22-23. TTL appointed Shubham and Company as their statutory auditors. Okay. Sudha and Company issued guidance to Shubham and Company on how they will use the work that will be performed by them. However, TTL management was of the view that they are not required to share anything with the Sudha and Associates. Although TTL Limited is a separate standalone entity where the majority of the holding is with the old individual shareholders. Hence, Shubham and Company is not required to share or disclose any information to Sudha and Company. Okay. So that is the background about the transaction between a company and the auditors. So let us see first question. So the first question is, as per the parent auditor, Sudha and Associate decided to visit TTL to examine certain key transactions pertaining to the deal between SPL and TTL. However, TTL's management denied and explained to Sudha and Associate that they are not the principal auditors. Kindly guide TTL with respect to Sudha and Associate being the principal auditor by selecting the appropriate option from below. So first, before we go to the options, you tell me whether Sudha and Associates are principal auditors or not. What do you think? Whether Sudha and Associates are principal auditors? Yes, no. Come on, guys. Come on. So, what do you think? Whether Sudha and Associates are principal auditor or not? Okay, let's see the options. Options are, as the old individual shareholder are still majority shareholders, so then associate cannot then term themselves as a principal auditor. To classify themselves as a principal auditor, the auditor has to prove control over the component auditor, and then only principal component relationship can be established. As SPL is a holding company by virtue of control, hence Sudan Associate can consider themselves as a principal auditor. Shubham and company can categorize themselves as a principal auditor as they are the statutory auditors of the entity where the investment has been made and public interest entity criteria is applicable. So, what do you think is the correct option here? Come on, guys. What do you think is the correct option over here? A, B, C, D. What? Which one? Come on, guys. We just now discussed this one. What would be the correct option over here? So, basically, in the current scenario, okay, as we remember, we just now discussed that if, you know, any of the financial information, okay, so if a financial information of a branch, division, okay, and any subsidiary, joint associate, joint venture, associate enterprise is being included in the financial information of entity which is being audited by principal auditor, then in that case, yes, that particular entity will be counted as a component, and that entity where the financial information will fall will be counted as a your main entity, principal entity. Okay. Now let's understand option one. As the old individual shareholders are still majority shareholders, Sudan Associated cannot term themselves as a principal auditor. This condition we never heard of. Principal majority shareholders, old shareholders, we never discuss about this. So I don't think so. This one is the one. Like we never discussed about the shareholding. To classify Sudan Associate as the principal auditor, the auditor has to prove control over component auditor. This is wrong. Control over component auditor. We never talked about control over component auditor. We are talking about inclusion of the financial information of the parent entity into the component. So this is also wrong. Then SPL is a holding company by virtue of control, hence Sudha and Associate can consider themselves as a principal. So when I talk about holding entity, over there I am something talking about inclusion of the financial information. This denotes inclusion of financial information. So as of now, I can say, okay, this is appearing good. Last one, Shubhan and company can consider themselves as the principal auditor as they are statutory auditor of the entity where investment has been made and the public interest entity criteria is applicable. Again, we never discuss any such criteria, public interest entity criteria. So this is also not correct. So the correct option is C. Clear? Any doubt? Okay. If no doubts, let's proceed further to the next questions. Next is kindly explain to Sudha and company. Okay. Kindly explain to Sudha and associates the method to be considered before whether their own participation is sufficient to be act as a principal auditor or not. So method to be considered, okay, before whether their own participation is sufficient to be act as a principal auditor or not. What are the matters to consider that their own participation is sufficient? Which matters we discuss, guys, before accepting as a principal auditor? Come on, quickly. We discuss this one. Which are these matters? Matters to consider before whether their own participation is sufficient to be act as a principal auditor. Which were those matters? Come on, guys. Which are those matters? Come on, quickly. Remember four matters? Very good, Charu. So the matters are, remember, before considering that the auditor should consider whether his own participation is sufficient to be able to act as a principal auditor. For this purpose, the auditor should consider the materiality of the portion of financial information which principal auditor audits, the principal auditor's degree of knowledge of business of components, the risk of material misstatement in financial information of components audited by other auditor, and the performance of additional procedures as set out in this essay. Remember additional procedures that we discussed. Okay. So these are the matters that are required to be considered in order to identify whether auditor's own participation is sufficient to be acted as a principal auditor or not. Clear? Any doubt? Any doubt, guys? No? Let's consider one more question. SPL specifically requested Sudha and Associates to verify their credentials. Okay. professional competency and objectivity of Shubham and company before using any their work. Sudha and Associates, however, are not sure whether to perform such procedures. Uh, Kindly guide Sudha and Associate with respect to considering the professional competency of other auditors. So I'll give you an options. Options are when planning to use another work of another auditor, the principal auditor should consider the professional competency of other auditor in context of a specific assignment. If other auditor is a member of Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, when planning to use work of another auditor, the principal auditor should consider the professional competency of other auditor in context of a specific assignment. If the other auditor is not a member of Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, the principal auditor engagement partner shall determine the component auditor have appropriate competency capability, including sufficient time to perform the assigned audit procedures at the component, determine whether the component auditor have the appropriate competency and capability in the matter of professional judgment and is influenced by the parent's management. So what is the correct option over here? Come on guys, what is the correct option? So SPL specifically requested Sudha and company to verify credentials, professional competency and objectivity of Shubhan and company before using their work. However, Sudha and Associates are not sure whether they should perform such procedures or not. So here, by selecting the appropriate option, guide Sudha and company whether and how they can perform such procedures. Come on, guys. Which is the correct option over here? Good Mohammed, good Mufida. Okay, Pradeep, very good. So, usually principal auditor has to consider the professional competency of other auditor when he is not a member of institute. So in the first option, I'm saying he's a member of institute. If the other auditor is member of institute, that is incorrect. So first option is incorrect. Let's see the third option. The principal auditor's engagement partner shall determine the component auditor have appropriate competency, capability, including sufficient time to perform assigned audit procedures at the component. So that is something is required to be seen by the component auditor's engagement partner, not the principal auditor's engagement partner. And hence, C is also incorrect. D, whether determining whether the component auditor has appropriate competency is a matter of professional judgment influenced by the parent's management. That is totally incorrect. Parent management has nothing to do with this. So that's why D is also incorrect. So by default, D is the correct option. And here also I am saying auditor is not a member. See, not a member. So B is the correct option. Any doubts? Any doubts, guys? Okay. If no further doubts, then let's proceed forward with respect to the topic. Okay. Now, what we were discussing is, when we have to rely upon the work which is performed by another auditor. Now, let's say, for example, you have been appointed stat auditor of XYZ Limited. Now, XYZ has an internal audit department. Okay. Now, what company is saying is, you, instead of testing purchases, please use the testing of purchases done by internal audit team. Okay. Means XYZ Limited is saying that the internal audit team has done the testing of purchases. Okay. Instead of you doing the testing again, you know, please use the testing of purchases done by internal audit to avoid duplication and to save the time. To avoid duplication of testing and to save the time. So that is the proposal by XYZ Limited to you. XYZ Limited is giving you this proposal. Okay. That please, use the testing done by internal audit team instead of you doing, again testing. So you tell me what you think about this proposal. Okay. This is a proposal. Will you accept? Management's proposal? Question mark. Will you accept the management's proposal here? Simple. Management has came to you. Please accept, the testing or use the testing done by internal audit team to avoid duplication of testing and save time. Will you accept the proposal? Now, by this, if you use or if you accept, you can save, let's say, for example, a day of testing, whole testing. Come on, guys. Will you accept this as a test, this particular proposal? Yes, no. Okay, there could be two answers, yes or no. Okay, we'll discuss both, yes and no. So if you are saying no, then why? Like, some reason, there might be some logic behind it. Why no? Come on, guys. Why do you think no? Why do you say no? What is the reason behind? Or if you say yes, then why yes? Like, what is the thought process? Okay, why should you accept this? Let's think, let's do a brainstorming. Before we jump into the provisions or before we jump into the requirements of essay, let's brainstorm. So, Charu, you are saying yes if provided the observations given by internal audit is supported with sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. Okay. Pradeep, you are saying yes. So Charu has said this one. Pradeep, you are saying okay. Yes. Subject to we will evaluate the details provided by IAT. Very good. What else? Yes, no, why? Come on, guys. Let's do the brainstorming so that we understand what is actually required to be done logically and what standard is saying. No, because it may impact independence of the auditor. That is why Mufika. Good. What else? Come on, quickly, guys. Yes, no, why? No other reasons? Shailesh, Geeta, what do you think? Yes, no, why? Like, why do you think yes or no? Okay, so all the answers given here are correct. Yes, are correct. I could say yes also, I could say no also. That depends upon me. But that dependency, upon me is based on certain factors that we need to understand logically when to say yes and when to say no. There is no correct answer as per se. Both are correct. But this essay talks about when to say yes to this proposal and when to say no to this proposal. Okay. So essay 610 basically guides that when we can use the work of internal auditor, when we can say yes to the proposal, SA 610, using the work of internal auditors. Okay. Now, as I said, there could be yes also, there could be no also, but that depends upon that how and what are the things that have been provided to us, what are the things, based on which the proposal is there, terms and conditions of the proposal, a lot of things are there that we need to understand. Okay. Now, so in organization, there could be internal audit functions. Okay. They're as a part of their governance structure. And the objectives and scope of the internal audit function, the nature and its responsibility, organizational status, a lot of things are there that are required to be looked into, or and they change or vary from entity to entity, in large extent. Now, before I accept the proposal of using the work of internal auditor, I need to understand few things. I need to understand what is the internal audit function doing in an organization. Okay, I need to gather some information about the internal audit function first, and then only I can say, okay, whether I can accept the proposal or not. So let us see basically what is you know that particular things that we are required to look into. So when I say whether to accept the proposal or not, in the terms of the standard, we say that the objective, like the objective of the external auditor, okay. So when I have a proposal by the management, so means when external auditor is considering or is expected to use the work of the function. So when I say I am considering to accept the proposal, or auditor is considering to accept the proposal, in the term of standard, I will say that external auditor expects to use the work of the internal audit function in order to modify the nature, timing, or reduce the extent of audit procedures to be performed by directly by external auditors. So When I say I am considering to accept the proposal of management, that means that external auditor is expecting to use the work of the internal audit function in order to modify the nature, timing, or reduce the extent of the audit procedures to be directly performed by external auditor. And when this is the scenario, then I said, I need to see some things. I need to evaluate some things. What I need to see is I need to determine, and before accepting the proposal, I need to check few things. So to accept the proposal of management, or I could say here, this is whether to accept the proposal of management in terms mentioned in standard, or in language mentioned in standard. So this is the language mentioned, which is similar to whether to accept the proposal of management. And to accept the proposal of management, I need to see few things. We need to evaluate certain areas, or factors, or something like that, you can say. In other words, or in the terms of standard, I would say external auditor needs to determine first whether the work of the internal auditor whether the work of the internal auditor, or I keep big dash over here. Why? I will discuss this in some time. Whether the work of the internal auditor can be used, and if so, then in which areas and to what extent. That is the first point that we need to understand. Okay. So when we can reduce, if we want to use the work of internal auditor, then can we use? If yes, then in which areas, to what extent? Number two, if using the work of the internal audit function, if using the work of internal audit function, we need to determine, external auditor needs to determine whether that work, or rather, whether that work, is adequate for the purpose of audit. For example, in our example, when management was giving this proposal, management said, they have tested the purchases. But when I say testing, they only tested 3 samples throughout the year. Now, my by testing three samples, if management tomorrow comes, no, no, they have tested, please rely upon their work, please rely upon their work. I need to understand whether that is adequate. Three samples are adequate for my purpose. When how will I say whether it's adequate? Let's say, for example, if I was supposed to going to test 200 samples, and you come and you say that you have tested three samples and use my work and do not test again, it might not be sufficient for me. I need to test the samples in that case. So I not cannot rely upon the work. So if tomorrow internal audit says that by testing three samples, we say there is no observation in the purchasing, we cannot rely because the testing is inadequate for our purpose. So we need to see whether the testing or the work performed by the internal auditor is adequate for the purpose of audit. Or third portion, dash for three lines because I am yet to discuss this one. Okay. So I need to evaluate this. Fine. Now let's consider another proposal which is given by management to us. So management this time came, okay, you think that we have only tested three samples, not sufficient for you. Do one thing. Take help of internal audit team to test 300 purchasing invoices. Okay. You take help of internal audit team to test 300 invoices. Now, if you do not accept our first proposal, we are giving you this proposal. So, accept the help of internal audit means IA team, internal audit team will, provide you their manpower to test the samples. Will you say yes or no to this? Will you say yes or no? Now, this proposal, I have this proposal, second proposal, management. Okay, we denied the first proposal because three samples they tested. Okay, only three samples. Now, they have presented a second proposal to us. I was not satisfied here because they only tested three samples. I needed to test 300 samples or 200 samples, whatever it is. So, will you accept this proposal? Yes, no. Thank you, Pradeep. Thank you very much. Sarika, these are the ones that you need to select, these classes, which are the batch which is currently going on. So again, there will be two answers. Yes, no. I could accept, I could not. I would accept, would not. So, okay, Mohammed, you are saying yes if satisfied the independence criteria. Okay. Yes, if satisfies the independence criteria. Okay, good. What else, guys? Come on. Why Charu? Any reason behind why should reason to the answer or any logic that you say, with your not accepting the proposal. I'm talking about second proposal that they are saying, okay, use the help of internal auditing. IA team will provide manpower to you to test the samples. And that too free without any charge. without any charge. Free. Offer for the day. Use internal audit to test your samples. What do you think? Yes, no. Should I accept second proposal? Should I not accept second proposal by the management? In free, you are getting manpower. Like, you are getting resources to work. Come on, guys. Will you say yes or no? No. Uh, Reason because there could be threat to fundamental principles. Okay. So Charu is saying there could be threat to fundamental principles like integrity, honesty, and all that stuff. Okay. So threat to fundamental principles if they do not follow integrity, objectivity, or kind of thing. Very good. Anyone else, guys? Come on, let's try. Let's try. The more you will, think of the process, the more you will understand. Okay, logically we will understand why yes or no, and whatever we are discussing will be used, and that's the logic. Again, now whether yes, whether no, both are correct. Both are correct. So when I talk about the second proposal in the terms of standard is known as direct assistance, direct assistance by IAT. When to use direct assistance, something, again, SA 610 guides you. When to accept the second proposal. So where I, kept the line empty. So standard also guides you at that particular place. Says that, okay, whether the work of internal auditor or direct assistance from the internal auditors can be used. If so, then in which areas and to what extent? Direct assistance is the second proposal. The third point, which I kept it blank, that was this standard helps us, in determining if we are using direct assistance. In case of direct assistance, okay, whether whether if we are using internal auditors to provide direct assistance, whether we can appropriately direct, supervise, and review their work, whether the external auditors can appropriately direct, supervise, and review their work Very important points that we need to understand. So these are certain questions we need to answer before we can say yes to the proposal 1 and proposal 2. Before we can accept the proposal of the management, we need to evaluate these areas, like whether the work of internal auditor or direct assistance from the internal auditor can be used, whether that work is adequate, and whether if we are taking direct assistance, can we direct supervisor and review their work? If yes, then only we will go forward and use their work. Otherwise, we will. Now the question comes is how to identify this. Okay. We have written this for the purpose of writing. We wrote, okay, these are the things we need to check. But how to check? And how to identify this particular thing? Whether the work can be used. If so, then in which areas, to what extent? How can I identify that? Okay. Whether the work is adequate for the purpose of audit, how can I identify that? Don't worry. So for that also, standard has provided you guidance that how to determine these things. Okay. So the first one, when I talk about if internal auditors needs to think about the work that is being performed by the external auditors, need to think about whether the work performed by the internal auditor can be used. Okay, the first part is whether can be used. If so, then in which area and to what extent? Three things. If yes, then in which area and to what extent? So for that, in which area, to what extent, if yes, okay, that is the first thing that we need to understand. Now, for that, we need to identify whether we can use the work. So first we need to go on to this yes. Whether we can use the work, yes or no, that major thing. And for that, we need to, for this yes, we need to evaluate our external auditor needs to evaluate IA function. Okay, internal audit function. I need to evaluate internal audit function. And how will I do that? By looking into three areas. Number one, to what extent, to what extent, or to which extent, kind of, no, which or what, whatever you know, or to which extent the internal audit functions, organizational status, and relevant policies. And procedures, okay, supports the objectivity of internal auditor. Understand, when I say whether the organizational status, relevant policies, procedures support the objectivity of internal auditor. And when I say objectivity, basically is kind of being presenting to the facts straightforward, not being influenced by any of the pressure or something like that. Okay, that we have discussed already. Objective when we discuss about the fundamental principles. Now, when I talk about objectivity, okay, how organizational status plays an important role that we need to understand, because organizational status at times, it's very, very, very important to determine whether is there any influence, undue influence or conflict of interest with respect to uh, you know internal audit functions, objectively. How? I'll tell you with an example. Let's say organizational status, I'm talking about. So so we have board of directors. Okay. Below that we have managing director and CEO, who are looking for the operations and everything. Under that, I have various officers. I have a CFO. I have a CIO, Chief Information Officer. I have a Chief Technology Officer, Chief Sales Officer. I have a Chief Procurement Officer, CPO, and go on. Okay. Now, under CFO, I have VP Governance. Okay. I have VP Finance. Under VP Governance, I have a Chief Internal Audit Officer. Okay. Now, this is the organizational structure as of now. Okay. So instead of this, I will write Chief IA Officer. Now, whatever the planning is done in this particular organization, planning of audits, that is done based on the input provided by this particular person, that is a chief VP and the chief governance officer. So, based on input received by them, okay, the planning of audit is done. The observations are first discussed with VP Finance and VP Governance, and then they both report to CFO, and then VP, then governance reports to CFO, and then CFO to MD, CEO, okay, and then CEO to audit committee. So this is how it works here in this particular organization. You tell me what is the issue. What is the issue in this organization now? You tell me. This is how it works. Planning of audits done through the VP Finance and VP Governance input. Observations are first discussed with the VP Governance and VP Finance, and then VP Governance finally, whatever he decides, he reports to CFO, CFO to CEO, CEO to then audit committee. Somewhere here is the audit committee. Oversighting responsibility. What is the issue in this current scenario? Come on, guys, what is the issue here in the current scenario? We have this person over here, Chief Internal Auditor. We have VP Governance over here. We have VP Finance over here. We have the rest of the, CXOs lining here. We have an MD over here and BOD over here. What is the problem here? Come on, guys, what is the problem do you think will be here? Do you think this is appropriate? Do you think this is appropriate? I would say no. For me, I would say not appropriate. Reason because Chief Internal Auditor has no direct access to audit committee. Number one. There is a high chance of, because VP Finance is reviewing the observations, okay, and observations will be related to finance and operations. So they could exercise undue influence. Plus, Chief Internal Auditor is below, okay, the pricing officers, technology and sales and everyone. They can also exercise undue influence. That will result in impaired objectivity. Same, impaired objectivity. Now, if so much of undue influence can be exercised and Chief Internal Auditor doesn't have a direct access to the audit committee, there are two levels of, hierarchy between 1 and 2 that shows that, the rigid hierarchy within the organization and, the policies and procedures are not supporting the objectivity, of the internal audit function. So this is from here below the chief internal audit officer, the internal audit function is there. By this way, I can say if the I can say that to which extent the internal audit function's organizational status and relevant policies procedures supports the objectivity of internal auditor will help me to decide should I go or not. So if they are at the position where they, anyone can exercise undue influence, means they're testing their decisions, their collection of planning, audits, everything will be, impaired. I cannot accept, to rely upon the work of the internal auditor in that case. So the first point for determining if yes is this one. Organizational status, relevant policies, supports objectivity. If that does not support, straight no from me. I will not rely. Number 2, level of competency of internal auditor or internal audit function. Level of competency means who are there. Let's say, for example, the chief internal audit officer, this particular officer, he is BCom graduate, passed in 2022. And below him, below this particular chief internal audit officer, I have, let's say, for example, Chief IA officer, IO3 manager, manager 1, manager 2, manager 3. They are, you can say, he's a kind of, undergrads. All three are undergraduates. Okay, all three. So they are kind of, pursuing bachelors, but they are not yet bachelors. They are undergraduates. Do you think internal audit function is competent enough? I say no. Because the manager themselves are undergrads. They are still yet to receive the bachelors. Again, I need to consider experience also. All are freshers. So if that is the scenario, then it raises a doubt on the competency of the internal audit function. Okay, whether internal audit function is competent enough. And the last one is systematic and disciplined approach. Systematic and disciplined approach, including quality control in audit. So if particular this thing is there, I need to evaluate whether systematic and disciplined approach was applied on. If this particular systematic and disciplined approach is including quality control is applied, then only I will say yes. Otherwise, I'll say no. Any doubts? Any doubts, guys? So as of now, we have only seen one option, one, like the first one, yes. Whether we can say yes to internal audit function or no. Based on these three things, whether we can say yes or no. If we will say yes, then to what extent, in which areas, that we need to understand. But yes or no, that is the first, stage that we have covered as well. Any doubt, guys? Any doubt? If no doubt, then let's keep till here in the current lecture. In the next lecture, we will continue to what extent and in which areas portion of the internal audit function, and then we'll see the rest of the topic. Okay, we keep till here. Okay, guys. If no further questions, then thank you for your time, thank you for participation. Please revise and read for the next lecture. I'll see you in the next lecture. Thank you. Yes, sir.